Once upon a time, in a quiet little farm, there was a mother duck sitting on her eggs. She waited and waited, keeping them warm, dreaming about the day they would hatch. One by one, the eggs cracked open, and little fluffy yellow ducklings came out. They were all so cute and soft, chirping happily as they looked at their mother. But one egg was different. It was bigger and took longer to hatch. The mother duck was a little worried. Finally, the shell broke, and out came a strange-looking duckling. He was bigger than the others, with gray feathers instead of soft yellow ones. His beak was longer, and his legs were not like the rest. The other ducklings looked at him and started whispering. "What is wrong with him?" one duckling said. "He doesn't look like us," another laughed. The mother duck was surprised, but she still loved him. "Come, my little ones," she said gently. "Let's go to the pond." The ducklings followed their mother, waddling toward the water. But as they walked, the other animals on the farm started staring at the strange duckling. The chickens giggled, the pigs snorted, and even the other ducks whispered among themselves. "He is so ugly," a rooster cackled. "Why does he look so different?" a goose sneered. The poor duckling looked down at his reflection in the water. His heart ached. He wasn't like the others. No matter how much he tried to fit in, they always reminded him that he was different. Days passed, and the teasing got worse. The other ducklings refused to play with him. They called him names and pushed him away. Even the mother duck, though she tried, could not protect him from their unkind words. One evening, as the sun painted the sky with orange and pink, the ugly duckling sat alone near the pond, tears filling his eyes. "Why am I like this?" he whispered to himself. "Why can't I be beautiful like them?" He decided he couldn't stay there any longer. With a heavy heart, he ran away. He ran past the farm, past the fields, until he reached a deep forest. There, he found a small pond and hid near it, away from the world that didn't want him. Days turned into weeks. The seasons changed. The ugly duckling lived alone, afraid to go back, afraid of more laughter and pain. But he still dreamed. He dreamed of a day when he wouldn't feel so alone, when someone would look at him with kindness. Winter arrived, covering the land in snow and ice. The poor duckling shivered in the cold, hungry and weak. He found shelter in a small cave, surviving on whatever little food he could find. The loneliness was harder than the cold. He longed for warmth, for love, for a place where he belonged. One day, as the snow started melting and spring returned, he wandered near a lake he had never seen before. The water was crystal clear, and the trees swayed gently in the wind. He sighed, feeling tired and hopeless. But then, he saw something that made his heart stop. A group of the most beautiful birds he had ever seen were swimming in the lake. Their feathers were white like snow, their long necks curved gracefully, and they moved with such elegance. Swans. The ugly duckling felt ashamed. He lowered his head and turned away, not wanting them to see his ugliness. But then, one of the swans noticed him. "Why are you hiding?" the swan asked kindly. The ugly duckling hesitated. I am ugly," he said softly. "I don't belong anywhere." The swan looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. "Look into the water," she said. The ugly duckling slowly looked down, and what he saw made his breath catch. A beautiful swan. White feathers, bright eyes, a long graceful neck. He blinked, confused. Is that me?" he whispered. "Yes," the swan said gently. "You were never a duckling. You were always a swan. You just didn't know it yet." Tears filled his eyes, but this time they were tears of happiness. He had spent his whole life thinking he was ugly, thinking he was different in the worst way. But he was different in the best way. He was beautiful. He always had been. The other swans welcomed him with open wings. They swam together, laughing and playing. For the first time, the ugly duckling, no, the beautiful swan, felt like he belonged. He was no longer lonely. He was no longer afraid. And when he flew into the sky with the other swans, feeling the wind beneath his wings, he finally understood. It didn't matter what others had said about him. It didn't matter how much they had laughed. He had always been special. He had always been meant for something greater. So, to everyone listening, never let others tell you that you are not good enough. Never believe that you don't belong. You are more beautiful than you know. You are stronger than you think. And one day, just like the ugly duckling, you will spread your wings and fly. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something deep inside, then don't forget to like and subscribe. There are so many more beautiful stories waiting for you. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are special, just the way you are. The beautiful swan glided across the water, feeling the warmth of the sun on his feathers. He no longer feared his reflection. In fact, he loved it. He had spent so long believing he was less, thinking he was unworthy. But now, he knew the truth. As he swam with the other swans, he noticed something on the shore, a small duckling, sitting alone, just like he had once done. The little one had soft, fluffy feathers, but he looked sad. His head was lowered, and he stared into the water, just as the ugly duckling had done so many seasons ago. The swan's heart ached. He understood that feeling, the pain of not belonging, the loneliness that made every day feel heavy. He slowly swam closer and spoke gently. "Why are you sitting here alone?" he asked. The duckling hesitated before whispering, "I don't fit in." The others say I'm not like them, that I'm too different. The swan smiled, remembering his own past. Different doesn't mean bad. Sometimes, it just means you haven't found where you truly belong yet. The duckling looked up, his eyes filled with uncertainty. But what if I never belong anywhere? The swan lowered his neck so they were eye to eye. You will. I promise. Sometimes, it takes time to see who you really are. But when you do, you'll realize that you were always meant for something wonderful. The duckling's eyes widened with hope. The swan gently touched his beak to the little one's head, a silent promise that he was not alone. As the sun began to set, the swan took one last look at his reflection in the water. The journey had been long. It had been painful. But it had made him who he was. Without the hardships, he would have never known his true beauty. Without the struggles, he would have never understood the meaning of kindness. And now, he had a purpose, not just to live happily, but to remind others that they, too, were meant for something greater. So, dear listener, wherever you are, whoever you are, if you ever feel like you don't belong, if you ever feel like you are different, remember this story. The pain you feel today is not the end. It is just the beginning. One day, you will see your reflection and realize that you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out, to shine, to soar. So keep going. Keep believing. Your wings are waiting. And if this story touched your heart, if it made you feel even a little bit stronger, then don't forget to like and subscribe. There are many more stories to tell, many more hearts to inspire. Thank you for listening. You are special. You are loved. And you are more beautiful than you know.